You're listening to Big World Network.
Accidental Passion, Episode 7, Favor Returned, Part 2, Ryan. Warning: although there is no material subject matter within that couldn't be found in any general bookstore with no age constraint, this series is rated 18 and contains adult situations and content. It is intended for mature audiences only and should not be read if you are uncomfortable with graphic sexual intimacy. Ryan surveyed the hotel conference room as his agent led him through a side door. Half of the conference room was set up with rows of chairs, and there were 3 desks set up in front of them by the open curtains that were on either side used to divide the room in half. The desks were made to look like news anchor desks and were curved to surround whoever was seated at them, with the logo of his publisher on the front of all 3. It's going to be a book signing followed by a half-hour Q&A, his agent Angela said, looking up at Ryan. 2 hours in and out, I promise. Right. As usual, he knew she would be lying, and it would kill his entire afternoon, but he knew he owed it to his fans, and it was all part of the deal, being a best-selling novelist. It couldn't be avoided if he was to remain at the top. But he also knew that Angela, although extremely good at her job, was a bit of a bitch and lied consistently to him. He had grown accustomed to it. "Where will I be seated?" "Behind the desk on the left side," she answered. "I have to be somewhere else, but will slip back in before it's over." "Sure," Ryan replied, his tone reflecting a slight level of annoyance. "Be your wonderful self, Ryan," she said, smiling as she turned to leave and kissing him on the cheek, an annoying fake goodbye she gave to everyone. "I'll be back." Ryan occupied himself talking to the other 2 authors, one of which he had met before. The other one was a young up-and-coming mystery writer. He didn't care much for the first of his novels, but did find the kid to be funny and charming. Eventually, the doors were opened and fans began lining up in front of the 3 desks, with the longest in front of Ryan's. An aide brought a stack of his latest novel in hardback copy and placed them on the corner of his desk, and he began to sign them for each fan as they reached their turn. He always made a point to write something somewhat personal and greeted each fan warmly. About an hour into it, the same aide that had been resupplying the books came up behind him and whispered in his ear that the Q&A would be beginning shortly. He was glad for that, his hand growing tired of signing. He noticed that the other 2 authors were just scribbling a signature and moving fans through at a much faster rate. As he handed a signed copy to a middle-aged man and wished him well, Ryan grabbed the next book on the top of the pile and opened the cover as he started to ask, "Who should I make this out to?" But, before he could finish, he looked up directly into the eyes of her. It was Kim, and she was looking incredibly beautiful standing there in front of him, smiling. Before he could even say anything, the lights in the room began to flash, and the aide made a breathy announcement that everyone should take their seats. Without any exchange of words, Kim moved off to the side. All Ryan could do was watch her as he felt his heart racing. But he didn't have much time to think, as the crowd's eyes were on him while he was being introduced. After a couple of rounds of questions, he caught a glimpse of Kim out of the corner of his eye. He was almost certain that he saw her crawling under the fake news desk from behind the curtain beside it. After answering his current question about where he got his ideas for his novels, a new question was addressed to the younger of the authors, and Ryan felt something brush against his leg. He knew in an instant that Kim was underneath the desk. His heart instantly began to race. His mind was having trouble reacting while trying desperately to follow the questions being asked so he wouldn't look like a total idiot when it came back to him. As he answered his next question, he felt Kim's hand slide up the inside of his thighs from the knees to go between his legs. He felt himself growing hard as her hands began to caress, hold, and rub his rapidly growing cock. Trying to control his breathing, looking out over the crowd on the other side of his desk, he was acutely aware that they had no idea what was happening. Keeping his answers short to avoid giving away any telltale signs of the pleasure he was receiving, he finished the question quickly. As the eyes of the crowd turned to the middle desk where the younger of the authors was talking, Ryan felt Kim's fingers find his zipper and pull it down. She used her hands expertly to rub his cock through the fabric of his underwear. Damn, he felt like he was ready to burst out of them. Feeling he could get away with it for a moment while the crowd's eyes were not directed at him, he reached under the desk and briefly ran his fingers through Kim's beautiful hair as she felt her mouth encircle him. He couldn't help but let out a long, slow breath, trying so hard to control his visible reactions in front of the crowd. As the next question came around to him, he was barely aware of what he was saying, his entire mind and body on overload. He was trying to formulate his response to the question, while simultaneously trying to control his breathing and actions, hiding the incredible pleasure his body was receiving as he felt Kim's warm, wet mouth completely engulf him, then slide away, only to take him in again. It was so incredible, terrifying, and exciting all at the same time. He wanted to scream out, but instead he sat motionless as her tongue worked magic on his aching cock. He knew he wouldn't last much longer, and was in some ways glad, uncertain how much longer he would be able to hide the pleasure from showing on his face. From a door in the far back of the conference room, hidden from view of the audience by the large curtains off to the side, Angela, ambitious agent, slid in quietly. Almost immediately she saw the beautiful woman under the desk, taking Ryan deep into her mouth. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. But she was an agent and had seen and even arranged far more for some of her clients. Without hesitation, she carefully pulled her iPhone out of her purse and snapped several pictures of the woman giving her wealthy client a blowjob. You never know when such things will come in handy, she thought to herself. She slid the phone back into her purse and slipped back out the door.
This has been a presentation of Big World Network. Visit us on BigWorldNetwork.com for more free weekly series, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Big World Network.